Aquarian Gospel of Jesus the Christ. Jesus Christ's story in the Bible goes from 12 to 30 years old really quickly, as if he pushed the fast-forward button on puberty and skipped the awkward teenage years and the quarter-life crisis periods. But Levi H. Dowling wrote a new gospel that presents an alternative story about those missing years, like how your favorite anime likes putting filler episodes between story arcs. The book says Jesus traveled to places like India, Egypt, and Tibet, where he learned from different spiritual masters and picked up teachings from various religious traditions, like Hinduism and Buddhism. It was the ultimate study abroad program where Jesus brought back enlightenment instead of souvenirs. He used his early 20s as a perfect excuse to travel the world, just like you'd spend your 20s going on frequent vacations instead of paying off your student loans. It blends many different religious and philosophical ideas, many of which don't align with traditional Christian teachings. It's as if those teachings did the fusion dance and turned into something totally new and unfamiliar to Christians. Because it's a hodgepodge mix of different spiritual views, critics say that it could water down the Christian faith, since it includes other religious views that aren't exactly in line with what Christians believe. There's also the fact that it emphasizes Jesus as someone who teaches that spiritual experiences are more important than what the Bible says. Of course, you know that traditional Christians who've read the Bible 1,000 times find that controversial. Imagine thinking that egg fried rice is only made using egg and rice, but some radical chef comes in and introduces new ingredients like mushrooms, parsley, and pineapple. He then claims this is the new and improved version of egg fried rice. You'd naturally be outraged by this radical new idea. That's how Christians felt about the ideas that this book introduced. Book of Shadows. You know that witches haven't had the best reputation for hundreds of years because you think these are old hags who turn people into frogs and eat children for breakfast. The Book of Shadows hasn't helped them at all because of how it's controversially misunderstood with its association with witchcraft. This book is a central text in Wicca, a modern pagan religion focusing on your deep connection with nature, spirituality, and magic. It's supposed to be a guidebook for Wiccans instead of a spellbinding dark manual. But because the magic part stands out in Wicca, it's easy to think that the Book of Shadows teaches you how to summon demons and creatures of hell, but you should actually treat it as your mystical album because it's about your personal journey. But instead of awkward photos from family vacations, you're listing the best ways to summon rain in the middle of a hot day. The controversial side of this book comes from its supposed connection to dark and forbidden practices. If you watch the Harry Potter movies and see how people react when Voldemort and the dark arts are mentioned, that's how people feel about the spells and rituals associated with this book. Religious groups who don't believe in magic or who believe that sorcery is the power of the devil aren't big fans of the stuff that Wiccans believe in. The book also teaches spiritual freedom and empowerment, which conservative people aren't fond of because they fear that this might lead to moral decay. For example, if the Book of Shadows tells you that it's okay to strip naked and run around the street in your birthday suit, you'd probably do it, but not everyone would be happy about your newfound empowerment. Of course, it also doesn't help that it's called the Book of Shadows. Anyone would easily think it's about dark or evil stuff. Apocalypse of Peter. Sometimes a book can be a bit too imaginative and gruesome, even when it's only describing things on paper. That's why the Apocalypse of Peter is a controversial book that never made it into mainstream Christianity. And because of how imaginative the book is, it's more like a big-budget Hollywood movie script than a gospel written for the Bible. In a nutshell, this book provides a detailed description of the fate awaiting you after death. It also provides a pretty detailed description of heaven or hell, depending on where you end up. Think of it as a trailer that helps you understand what awaits you. For the good guys, it's pretty much eternal bliss, as long as you follow God's commandments. Imagine peaceful gardens, lots of light, and angels playing music. But for the wicked, well, things get much darker because they get tortured eternally, depending on the crime they committed in life, and the book doesn't hold back on the gory details either. Its idea of endless suffering can be a bit too harsh and inconsistent with Christianity, which is supposed to have a merciful God. There's also a debate about the authenticity of the book. It claims to have been written by Peter, the apostle, but there's really no proof. After all, you can write a new Game of Thrones book right now and claim that it was written by the real author. Because it views the afterlife as more of a punishment for the wicked, it doesn't really align with Christian beliefs. That's why it's a controversial book that never made it into the Bible. Of course, it also takes on a more fear-driven approach of salvation, kind of like treating it as the boogeyman to scare people into following the rules. Holy Books of Thalma. The name Thelemites might make them sound like they're an alien species from another planet, even though their beliefs are a bit too alien, but these people are actually part of a religion called Thalma, founded by Aleister Crowley in the early 1900s. Their spiritual beliefs are found in the Holy Books of Thalma, a series of texts that form the philosophical core of this religion. The most famous of these is the Book of the Law. Crowley claimed this book was dictated to him by a supernatural entity named Aiwass in 1904. This entity isn't your everyday spirit guide because he's more like a cosmic CEO with strong opinions on personal freedom, self-discovery, and shaking up the moral norms of society. If your boss had difficulty letting you go on vacation, Aiwass is the complete opposite. The book's core message is summed up in its famous line, "Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law." This phrase is often misinterpreted as do whatever you want, which isn't the best message to send people if you don't want chaos. Essentially, the book's core message is not only controversial, but also dangerous, because people can mistakenly believe it as Crowley telling them it's okay to do what you want as long as it makes you feel free. You can rob a bank tomorrow because that's what makes you feel ultimate freedom, but that isn't aligned with conventional morals and Christian teachings. Just imagine how chaotic the world would be if they followed the book's teachings. Crowley is also more of a bad boy in the world of unconventional religions. He doesn't shy away from going against the status quo by talking about magic and occult practices. Those things make the book a massive red flag in the eyes of a lot of people and religions, making it look like it's inherently evil. Corpus Hermeticum. You live during the time of the Renaissance, a time when knowledge and science were becoming more popular than old-school religious beliefs. The church had its back against the wall, trying to stop new ideas that questioned Christianity from sprouting. The Corpus Hermeticum was one of those books the church had its eyes on. This book is a collection of texts attributed to Hermes Trismegistus, a legendary figure often considered a blend of the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth. These writings delve into mystical, philosophical, and spiritual themes, blending Greek philosophy, Egyptian mysticism, and early Christian thought. It's like you place those beliefs in a blender and turn them into a smoothie of different ideas that have a unique taste. The book, of course, quickly found its way in the church's radar. It doesn't teach the same things you usually find in the Bible and the Quran. That's why religious leaders during the Renaissance period tried to repress the book and its controversial ideas. After all, priests already had their hands full contradicting philosophers and scientists. The last thing they wanted to do was entertain religious questions due to this book. This book also talks about something called gnosis, which is your ability to directly know the divine. It suggests that you can connect with the divine mind and transcend ordinary life on your own without the help of the church. Of course, the church doesn't like it when you call them useless. If everyone started thinking they didn't need the church, no one would be attending mass anymore. Then there's the alchemy and occult practices taught in this religion. This added another layer of controversy that was basically strike three, as the church had no choice but to try their best to repress its ideas. Basically, the book walked a tightrope between a philosophical goldmine and a mystical minefield, and you can bet your house that the church wasn't happy about that. Rigveda. Let's say you yell out a racial slur that gets everyone around you gasping. You're immediately canceled. However, you justify your racism by using the Rigveda. Now, you understand why this book can be quite controversial. The book has over 1,000 hymns, which would put Beyoncé's songs to shame. They talk about everything from creation to rituals, but they also reflect the social norms of ancient Indian society. That's where the troublesome part comes in. Some people argue that it reinforces caste systems and patriarchal values, which can feel pretty outdated. For instance, the text discusses the roles of different social classes, like priests, warriors, and laborers. You can misinterpret this as saying that some people and jobs are more important than others. Of course, this sends the wrong message because it invites classism and racism. That's why the book has led to debates about its role in justifying inequality in modern times, especially now when classism and racism are no longer in line with the latest trends. People are going to blast you on social media if you defend the Rigveda's ancient classism teachings, and this could lead to a PR nightmare that could very well destroy your reputation. Some people feel that the Rigveda's ancient wisdom should be revered and studied. That means you should be allowed to treat people from different classes differently. Meanwhile, others think it should be critically examined and reinterpreted to align with contemporary values. So even if the Rigveda highlights the importance of classes, you may want to leave your racist side back in the 1940s. Nag Hammadi Library. The Gnostics were a group that saw spirituality a bit differently. While traditional Christianity was all about faith in God and Jesus as the way to salvation, Gnostics Gnostics believed that knowledge was the key to spiritual enlightenment. For them, there was no point in miracles if they had metaphysics on their side, and when you have metaphysics on your side, there's no point in having faith in the church. They thought the material world was a bit of a trap created by a lesser god called the demiurge, and that true salvation came from escaping this physical world and returning to a divine realm of pure spirit. Imagine you're a goldfish living in an aquarium created by the demiurge. Escaping the aquarium and getting to the ocean is the ultimate form of enlightenment. For Gnostics, these texts suggested that you didn't necessarily need the church or a middleman to connect with God because you could do it yourself. Kind of like a spiritual DIY kit. That's why the church thought these books were a bit too controversial to introduce to mainstream society. They clash with Christian teachings and the importance of the church as the bridge connecting you to God. They thought these could turn their authority into a Jenga tower, where one small mistake could topple the entire thing down. So many of these texts were labeled heretical and banned. That's why the Nag Hammadi texts stay buried for so long. Sepher Yetzirah. The Sepher Yetzirah is like an ancient guidebook that teaches you not only how to understand the universe, but also shape it. Yes, it puts you in a godlike position with a step-by-step guide on making your own universe. That's why it's one of Jewish mysticism's most mysterious and controversial texts, especially in the Kabbalistic tradition. It's all about the idea that God created the world using 32 paths of wisdom, made up of 10 Sephirot and 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. If that sounds like it could get a little mathy, you're right. It's like a cosmic Sudoku, where numbers, letters, and forces of nature are interconnected. But the Sepher Yetzirah suggests that these Hebrew letters weren't just tools for language. Instead, they were the building blocks of the universe. It paints a picture of creation that's less, let there be light, and more, let there be an alphabet soup of existence. Basically, it is controversial because it demeans God's role in the creation of the world by degrading the universe into a simple math formula. That's why religious leaders who highlight God's importance in the creation story aren't fans of this book. After all, no one wants to believe the universe was put together like IKEA furniture, with the instructions written in ancient mystic code. Some people also interpret the book to have magical properties, much like a Harry Potter spellbook that tells you how to create a universe. Magical spells aren't really consistent with traditional Jewish teachings. That's why the book sits on the edge of controversy, especially among traditional Jewish leaders. So while the Sepher Yetzirah may seem like an ancient version of how to create a universe, it should be taken with a grain of salt. And most scholars would agree that it's more of a piece of religious philosophy, instead of an actual holy book you need to follow down to the last letter. We on this channel may not be gods, but we created this channel to serve as an online universe where you can learn all sorts of stuff. So if you want to be part of this universe, you can simply press that subscribe button. Book of Abramelin. You're browsing a library of old books and stumble upon the Book of Abramelin. One of the first things the book tells you is how to commune with your holy guardian angel. It sounds intriguing until you discover it's all about complex rituals and magical practices. One minute you think you're summoning your guardian angel, the next thing you know, you actually summoned a dangerous supernatural entity. The Book of Abramelin is a 15th century book attributed to an occultist named Abraham von Worms. It's more of a grimoire, a book of magic and sorcery than a holy book. It claims to provide the means to gain spiritual enlightenment and power. It teaches you how to summon your guardian angel, especially if you're in need of some spiritual personal training. The process can take up to 6 whole months, making it a long and tough experience. Yes, that's right, 6 months of prep work to get your angel on speed dial. But while that sounds nice and peaceful, like a spiritual retreat, there's also a controversial side to it. It turns out summoning divine beings comes with a bit of a dark side, like rubbing a genie out of a lamp, not knowing you accidentally awoke a sleeping demon. So in that sense, you'd think that this book is more about necromancy than it is about summoning your angel. After all, it talks about invoking spirits that could lead you down a dangerous path. You think about summoning Archangel Gabriel, but end up opening a portal to hell. And when there's evil, rituals, and spells involved, you'd know that the church will be the first to tell you this book belongs on the no-read list. That's why the book is both fascinating and terrifying, as if it comes with a proceed with caution sign. It may inspire you to dive deeper into the occults or question the balance between knowledge and the supernatural, and not everyone is ready for the power that comes with dealing with supernatural forces that may or may not be on your side.